And why do I say all this? Because I literally moved from, New York, right? Investment banking, a great career trajectory. And I said, I want to invest my career in early stage Israeli technology companies.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley, in partnership with insruTech, sponsored by Hippo Insurance, Upwest Labs, Turing, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, and in media partnership with CTech. We're in the Viola offices in Herzliya, and I'm joined by Omry Ben David, general partner of Viola Ventures. He joined the fund in 2017, bringing with him 15 years of technology-focused experience across investment banking, startup operations, and both institutional and private venture investments. Prior to Viola, Omry was a senior vice president at Goldman Sachs in the tech, media, and telecom investment banking group. Omry's areas of investment at Viola Ventures include FinTech and insruTech, as well as Enterprise and SME Software. Omry Ben David, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders.
Thanks for having me.
We are in the beautiful Viola offices in Herzliya. We're staring at a beautiful landscape here in the city, and walking into the offices, it feels like I'm in a huge startup that is just, growing immensely, and then there's a startup vibe with open spaces, with conference rooms. Don't imagine this as being a traditional venture capital office. And the first thing that you mentioned to me is that on this side we have Viola FinTech, on this side we have Viola Growth. It's amazing. It's an empire. Who are you?
So, the Viola Group, we've been around for 21 years. We are the largest tech-focused investment firm in Israel, managing more than $3 billion.
$3 billion?
$3 billion. And we do so across 4 families of funds that you mentioned some of them, right? So I'm a partner at Viola Ventures. We'll talk about that in a second. We are the early stage side of the house. We used to be called Carmel Ventures for the audience up until 3 years ago. Then we rebranded to be part of the Viola kind of consistent branding. But we do have a growth fund. We have a late-stage co-investment FinTech fund, and we have a credit fund. And we occasionally work together on the front end. But more importantly, the group invested in more than 200 companies. We leverage what we call the economies of scale, the platform. And that's what you've seen out here. And that's the ability to, connect people and founding a POC design and leverage the network and position for the next round. And, we have shared services like HR for recruiting and biz dev and marketing and legal and finance, etc. And we try to bring all that to bear to help our founders, to help our companies.
We're going to dive deep into hopefully all that in just a second. But first, I want to dissect you a little bit.
Yeah.
You didn't start your investment experience with Viola or with Carmel. Take me back all the way to New York and a little bit. What led you to even understand that you want to do this? That you want to be sitting here working with over 200 companies on some of the most amazing things?
Yeah, so it's actually an interesting story, I think. Maybe not the usual suspect, so to speak. So I've been at Viola for 4 years. I lead here, just for context, mostly B2B software, broadly defined, and FinTech investments. Prior to joining, I lived in New York, as you mentioned, for 10 years. I went to do my MBA at Columbia Business School, and then I worked for small school in New York. And then I worked for Goldman Sachs as a tech investment banker for 9 years. So I was much more suited up than you see me today with a polo shirt. And there, you do your classic banking deals. We do mergers and acquisitions. My claim to fame is when we sold DirecTV to AT&T for $67 billion.
Wow.
And we took Endurance public, and we helped Variant here in Israel, and we bought Constant Contact and sold Dynatrace and CompuWare, lots of big, interesting transactions. And you take companies public, which is now the flavor du jour in Israel. So you do IPO roadshows and you write S1s, etc. And of course, debt underwriting and activism rate defense. But also 10% of the job in banking at Goldman was institutional investments. So we invested, again, in small companies like Uber and Spotify and ZocDoc and many others. But it wasn't 100% of the job, obviously. And I was also an angel investor at YC. And I think this transition was kind of the classical, sell side to buy side. So from advisory and execution at the highest levels, really to startup investments, etc. And I think the other portion of it is before New York. So I'm not 8200, although I was a mentor at the 8200 accelerator. I don't know how they accepted me in there. I went to Moran Meitar, kind of an infantry unit. I was a company commander there. But I'm undergrad computer science at Tel Aviv University. And I worked in a young startup called Jungle Software through school and afterwards kind of leading sales, marketing, and biz dev. So also kind of the operating experience of working in a startup, scaling it up, and of course selling it successfully at the end. Kind of all this came to karma to join Viola 4 years ago.
Unbelievable. This transition from being institutional investor, Uber, those types of companies, angel investor in Y Combinator, two complete extremes of investment behavior, analysis, and thinking, also of acceptance of who you're investing in.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that transition.
Yeah, so I'll tell you what we tell also our investors, our LPs in the fund. Basically, we are big believers in the Israeli tech ecosystem. Israel used to be called Startup Nation. We now call it kind of unicorn country, with almost 50 unicorns. We, by the way, have 7 of them, if I may do a commercial break. Just Viola Ventures. I think it's the most, I know it's the most out of all the Israeli early stage funds. And that's part of our thesis, and we can talk about this. But we now believe that Israel is going from unicorn nation to become, the era of decacorn. See IronSource in our portfolio, but also eToro and Wix that we talked about them earlier, and of course Playtika and Mobileye, which was the largest exit at 15.3. You see more and more examples of Israel going and sort of developing or generating those types of success stories, what we call global category leaders. And why do I say all this? Because I literally moved from, New York, right? Investment banking, a great career trajectory. And I said, I want to invest my career in early stage Israeli technology companies.
Wow.
And that's a big statement. And that's what we tell our LPs. Look, Israel is the place to be right now. And you talked to me about experiences that sort of shaped my who I am. And I think the idea of moving back with children, they're all born there, having a good life, comfortable life, right, in the US, and kind of fulfilling the prophecy or basically, not only selling that thesis, but also living by it, right? And I think that's a testament of the strength of this ecosystem here.
So that conviction of what you're bringing with you, what it sounds to me is that, you chose the unordinary path. You had one specific path that you were on. You took the less comfortable one. And part of that is the conviction that you bring with you to Viola. Now, when you meet with companies, like the 7 that are already unicorns, and then you're meeting new companies on a daily basis, how does that conviction play into your own thesis of who do you want to work with and what types of companies you want to invest in?
Yeah, so first, the earlier you go and invest in companies, and this, it's more about the team. It's not a cliche. It really is. I mean, you want to find a team, and you want that team to find you to be somebody they want to work with, right? It's literally, I've been married for many years, but it's literally like a wedding, right? It's your partner. And by the way, it's your partner in the ups, but also in the downs. And you want to be somebody, in your corner, just to use this boxing analogy, that, they say everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. But also when you get punched in the face, you want to look back and say, oh, this is the guy or girl, of course, that I want to be in my corner and in my side. So I think the first element is, of course, the team. Then you look at other things, seed, you look at team, and you look at sort of, is the market interesting enough? Is this a category that matters, right? Is this a category that can get disrupted? Vector-wise, the earlier you go, you don't really have that product market fit yet. And of course, then you go into how what are your moats in terms of technology and product, etc. And then there are other things you look at. But I think important for us, and again, we invest in each fund, 20 to 25 investments, right? Early stage investments. You quickly realize that the VC model works if you manage to generate those outliers. So we don't live by a hit ratio strategy. We live by an outlier strategy. And that means it's not always successful. Actually, most of the time it's not successful, but we want to be in a room working with a team that we believe and they believe, and they have the conviction that they can lead an interesting category. And if that happens, everybody is happy. And look at the type of successes we had, and frankly, other funds in Israel had, and entrepreneurs. And that success leads to more and more success. It's this vicious cycle. The entrepreneurs are the rock stars of this century or this decade. And the younger people, they want to be like them, and they do a first exit and a second and a third. And it's an amazing ecosystem of innovation that Israel is just blessed with.
So you're talking about this guy or girl that when you get punched in the face, you want to look back and be able to fall back on because they'll push you up. Now at Viola, one of the things that we started talking about right before we started recording is this whole ecosystem that you're building, economies of scale, but also the actual tangible ways in which you're supporting the portfolio companies well beyond just the bank transfer that happens on signing the check. So how do you actually work with startups on a day-to-day basis? How does a startup working with Viola experience Viola across their lifetime?
So I'll tell you what we try to be our KPI. Okay. I want to, for you, for example, or the entrepreneurs out there to go out and ask, entrepreneurs we work with, who is your most impactful board members, or who is your partner in this journey that you would go and be your soundboard, or get good advice, or a good introduction, or whatever that is you need, right? With entrepreneurs, it's their company. It's very important to understand that we're not there to interfere, but we are there to be helpful when they come into a place where they say, hey, look, I have these two alternatives. I would like to hear your 2 cents. And our KPI is if you go to our entrepreneurs and they tell you, look, Viola, around my table, around my boxing match, just to use the same analogy for this discussion, Viola and the partner at Viola Ventures is my go-to guy. And if we did this, then we've done something right.
Right.
And I think, the way you work with them, it's not as structured as people tend to think. I mean, it's like mentorship, right? There is the structured and the unstructured. There's no point telling somebody, hey, I'm going to meet you on a weekly basis. The unstructured is what makes it successful. And the communication could be in-person meetings and Zoom and WhatsApp and whatever that may be. But if you instill in them the fact that anything you need, from hiring an exec, to let's talk about the positioning for the next round. Let's talk about our pricing, our go-to-market strategy. Let's talk about the business model. Let's talk about, who should we reach out to for our next fundraise, and we would like to get this warm intro from you guys. To, personal things that happen, because ultimately, if they come to me or to us, then that's a success. And I think, and people say this, but I think it's true for the CEOs out there. It's a pretty lonely job.
Yeah.
He or she are sitting in their offices. They make 1,000 decisions a day. Everybody makes mistakes. They want to minimize them, but you want to be that person that they can reach out to, interact with, listen to, and be that helpful person for them.
So as you're sitting personally on boards with some of the most amazing companies and amazing startups here in the ecosystem, where does it meet you personally? Like what part of Omry does it meet when you're working with different CEOs?
So look, my background in banking, as we mentioned, your typical trajectory will probably be, go and do private equity, right? Go and do something that is much more growth stage than early stage. I think my mission, or what gives me energy and wants me to wake up every morning, is the early stage side of things. And why is that? Because I think ultimately, we talked about this earlier, but when you have a team and a market you want to go after, I believe the earlier you go, the 5 to 10 decisions you get right at the beginning of your journey are going to pretty much not dictate, but are going to help project your trajectory, whether it's going to be hockey stick or whether it's going to be more linear, or God forbid, it's going to be more lumpy than linear, up and to the right. And my passion is to be with entrepreneurs when they make those 5 to 10 decisions. And I think that's what, both from working at startups and, being a computer science undergrad and working with entrepreneurs, if they allow me to work with them on those 5 to 10 decisions, and some of them we mentioned earlier, but they have to do again with hiring and design and finding the right design partners and the product market fit and what is the business model. it used to be license maintenance and everybody was, let's do SaaS. Now maybe it's value-based pricing, right? And you gotta be with them at all these, junctions. And there aren't 50 of them. There are 5 to 10 of them. And that's my passion, to work with them to make sure that the trajectory is, a J-curve as much as possible.
I love that analogy that as you're building the foundation, they're going to be making the same number of decisions across the lifetime of the company from inception to IPO, but the 5-10 decisions on day one are exponentially more critical than the 5 to 10 decisions at the end because they simply impact the way dozens of people are later going to enact on those decisions, right?
Yeah. No, it's right. Infrastructure is the right way to look at it. It's like the Maslow thing. Get the basics, and then you go up on those ladders based on your own progress, right? And in your own, companies always have different issues when they're at different stages, obviously. Right. But again, to my passion, and that's why I wanted to do early stage, is to get at the ground level and help, kind of the companies go all the way up.
What are you experiencing that is something that perhaps is non-trivial? That if you look back at Omry, that's finishing his time in New York, before even joining it as an angel to YC, what is something that you're learning about the early stage ecosystem, whether it's in Israel or the world, they're saying, wow, I did not think this is how things are working?
That's why I use the team. Everybody says team is important.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, one of my lessons learned is if you don't keep the bar as high as possible in terms of your hiring, you're not going to be successful. You need to have around the table A+ people, talents in every single function in your organization, because what happens, and I've seen it again and again, and I didn't emphasize it enough, so for the entrepreneurs out there, don't ever compromise on hiring, because what happens is it could be a slippery slope. You're an entrepreneur and you're hiring a B player. That B player may hire a C player, and it will go down and down that funnel. And especially now, I know it's difficult. The market is very competitive right now, like super competitive. But the one lesson learned is, again, do not compromise and make sure that you hire the best team that you can around. Now, it sounds trivial, but people, because they get pressure from their board or from their leadership team, they say, we have to hire now, and they cut corners, and that it just doesn't work.
So that brings me to accountability. Because
a beautiful word, by the way, it doesn't exist in Hebrew.
Really?
Think about it. What's the word for accountability in Hebrew? But it's a beautiful word. Think about it later.
I
love this word, by the way.
It's a thing that I'm stumped by, this idea. How does one keep themselves accountable? Because it seems like every function in the company, including the investors, they need to be held accountable by some other function. And so how do you experience accountability, whether it's from VC to CEO perspective, or CEO to himself, or VC to yourself? How does accountability actually work properly when it does?
Yeah, so first of all, in my view, accountability is an inherent proposition.
Okay.
So I want to be accountable in my own sort of little world, and I expect the entrepreneurs to be accountable in their own little world. And it's of course, there is this relationship, this two-way street between us, but I don't think a person can make another person accountable if that specific individual does not feel accountability or ownership. I just think it's something that is a super important trait for a successful entrepreneur. And again, I'm still shocked that there is no word for this in Hebrew, but it's something that needs to come a little bit from the inside. And then I'm happy to be accountable for you, and you're probably happy to be accountable for me, because that's what partnership is all about.
Right.
And our slogan, so to speak, is to be, impactful partners, and the word partner is there on purpose, to exceptional entrepreneurs. And part of being that exception is owning, your successes, your mistakes. But this is a grown-up games, right? I mean, this is not. We're in a serious world. We're trying to change the world with technology and innovation, and we all need to be, accountable again for our actions, for our good, our bad. And we are, by the way, happy to be there in that journey, again, for better or worse, till, as I say, till death or exit do us part.
Hello, Omry. This is amazing, and I'm so sad that you can't see behind these walls because what's happening here is just
Appreciate
fascinating.
it.
And
Appreciate it.
Viola comes up on a daily basis here in the ecosystem. The amazing things that you do, and the amazing entrepreneurs that you support, and a lot of them are good friends of mine. And I keep hearing how amazing it is. So thank you for this time and this inspiration. I have a few questions, not about your journey, not about Viola, but about your personality a little.
Sure.
Take me back to middle school or high school. You're sitting in the class. What fascinates you as a kid?
Yeah. So an anecdote. Yesterday was my 25th reunion, high school reunion. Okay, I'm 42. I'm a class of 1996. Wow. But it gets better. I'm a kid of exactly.
Wow.
Good. I'm a kid of international upbringing. By the way, that's another thing that shaped me a lot. I think Israel is a great country. 9 million people. Plenty of innovation, but you have to have your lenses way more open, and you know that because you lived abroad as well, obviously. So that's another experience. But anyway, that was my 25th reunion. It was in Zoom, COVID. I don't know if you watch this in 5 years. Go Google what COVID was. But and I graduated in Frankfurt. I went to the Frankfurt International High School.
I think I played against you in tennis many years later in the ISST.
ISSTs, of course.
I went to Frankfurt to play tennis and volleyball.
No way.
And we were we're still rival schools.
Amazing. So the guy, the big coach of all the sports program was in this reunion as well. But my math teacher was there as well, Mrs. Shoebottom, who I have to get in touch with her. I also told her that over there. She had this amazing video kind of wishing us all success and that we continue to be ambitious. And the ISST, so I did the International Baccalaureate and I did Math High, of course. But I know it sounds geeky, but I loved math back then, and I'm still a person of numbers. Look, I was a banker too, right?
Yeah.
So numbers are not. I'm not strange to a stranger to numbers.
If you look across your journey, some figure, metaphorical or real, that inspires you, either personally, professionally.
Yeah, look, I'm not gonna go big on kind of famous tech people and so on. I think something that is much more personal, and again, it comes back to Israel. Look, Israel is 72 years old, give or take. I'm a first generation that was born in Israel, despite half my life living abroad. I'm going to give this to my grandparents from both sides of my parents, for them to leave everything behind. And it doesn't matter really if it was one side from Europe and the other side from North Africa, for example. I think all of us in Israel, part of our DNA, our innovation, the fact that they left everything to come here and create this amazing country, and not only survive but thrive. I'm going to give them this. They're gone, right? They're past, all four of them. But I give it to my grandparents.
Beautiful. And if I were to ask anybody in this office, or if I were to ask you, how would you describe yourself in 3 words?
Look, I think again to the entrepreneurs. So I'm always on.
Always on.
Always on. I'm accessible, reachable. Try to do whatever I can to help. Second, I'm a big believer in integrity. I think it goes both professional integrity, but also personal integrity. And I'm committed. I'll be committed to this success. I'll do whatever I can to help entrepreneurs and really work with them to make it happen.
And it sounds like also committed to the failure and always there to push back up.
We will be there again for better or worse till death or exit do us part. That's important.
Omry, toda rabba rabba.
Toda. Thank you very much. It was great. Thank you.